Yes, I have an elder law question. My mother will be selling her house. It'll be its closing is the end of the month, and she will be moving in with my wife and myself in a garage we have fixed up for her. And I was just kind of wanting to know what we can charge her legally for the Medicaid look back.
Okay, is your mother-in-law on Medicaid now?
No, and she has no intention of filing,
Okay.
but she is in bad health. She has congestive heart failure and whatnot, and we don't know what the next 5 years may hold.
Okay, I got you. Well, when you talk about a Medicaid look back, what you're talking about is the amount of time that Medicaid will review any income that your mother-in-law has or any income that the household receives to determine whether your mother-in-law would be eligible for Medicaid. So I think one of the things that you need to take account of is that because of the way Medicaid determines who is eligible for Medicaid, what they look at is your household income. So they would look at the income of your wife, they would look at your income, and they would look at your mother-in-law's income to determine whether or not your mother-in-law, as a resident of that household, actually it qualifies for Medicaid. So whether or not you are charging her rent to stay in that particular garage is something that I would think would be totally separate from a Medicaid look-back provision. What you're talking about there would be the selling of your mother-in-law's house. So if you sell your house and then you derive an income, generally Medicaid will look back 5 years, I believe is what the Medicaid look back would be in that scenario, to determine whether or not you were selling that house to get out of the income contingent requirements of Medicaid, and then you would not be able to get Medicaid for your mother-in-law. But it sounds like right now that that's not an issue that would be at the forefront if you of a problem for you. But if you wanted to prevent an issue like that, there's a couple things that I would do. One is I would talk to a lawyer who specializes in elder law, because they could give you some really good advice about how to structure any income your mother-in-law has. For instance, there's a special needs trust in the state of Alabama that could help you out. Or you could take that money and you could put it into a type of arrangement where you could pay for your mother-in-law's the things that she needs, but it wouldn't count towards her income. So that could be something that could help you folks out. But in terms of the rent, that's not something I would think that you really need to be worried about what you're charging your mother-in-law. It would be what your wife's and your mother-in-law's income combined is to determine her Medicaid eligibility.
Well, Mr. Joe, thank you so much for that question. Well, Heath, while I do have you here and while we wait for another caller, I did want to ask you something, because we are talking about daylight saving time. We're running short on time, but if you could quickly just tell me why there are more accidents seem to happen when we have this time change.
It's watching for pedestrians on the road, because now when everybody's getting off work, getting off school, it's dark outside. It's gonna get darker. So I always caution people, the number of injuries we have increases because of the pedestrians that are on the road that people aren't watching out for. So just be careful out there. It's unfamiliar now. Take your time, make sure your headlights are on, and goodness gracious, look for people on the roads.
That's what you need to do. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming on. If you did not get your question answered, remember you can always call our friends over at Timberlake and League.